This is a $420 gaming PC. It can run most of your favorite games like Fortnite, Marvel Rivals, and even Cyberpunk. So stick throughout the whole video as I explain each part and why I chose it, test out some games, and give my honest thoughts on this PC overall. So before I started this PC build, I had a few ideas in mind. I want the PC to be under $500, which we landed on $420, repeatable, and still look amazing. So I started off with the pretty popular Ryzen 5 3600. It's a 6-core, 12-thread processor that is and always has been best for the price. And I feel like it speaks for itself as this is a great budget option. So all you have to do is pop back the latch, then slot in the CPU, and with some force, latch the CPU in securely. Now we can get into our motherboard choice, which is the machinist board from AliExpress. And this is probably the most popular motherboard on the website for some good reasons. It's cheap, it may be bare bones, but it's reliable and includes everything we realistically need. I've used it many times before, so I know it's worth getting. Now we need to install some RAM. This kit is from Cleaser, which is another brand on AliExpress. DDR4 RAM is expensive right now. So for this option, I decided with a 16GB kit as it still gets the job done. So all you have to do is pop back these slots, make sure the RAM is lined up correctly, and push it in until you hear a click. Now for our storage, we went with the Nettech 1TB Gen 3 NVMe. I've used this many times now and it still works pretty great. It's nothing crazy. It's got 3000 megabytes per second, which is still pretty good. And honestly, it's all we need. Anyways, just unscrew the original screw, slot in the SSD, and then you can just screw it back in, nice and easy. Now to cool our CPU, we don't need anything crazy. Here we have an air cooler from Osipus. This is a newer brand and they've had some amazing sales on Amazon, but they don't right now, so keep an eye out for that. Anyways, they are just like any other cooler. You just need to unscrew the original bracket, and then we can screw in these standoffs. Now place on the brackets like so, and then screw in those securely. Now we can apply some thermal paste, which the cooler does come with. I'm using my own. Then we can line up the cooler and evenly screw in each side. And then lastly, don't forget to plug in the CPU fan. Now that we're done with the motherboard, next up is the case, which is the Okinos Mirage 4. This case was previously featured on my best performing video, fun fact. And yeah, this case does not disappoint. It's budget, but with nice quality, the clean, compact design. Also, it has an ARGB hub, which works perfectly for our build. Now we need to install the motherboard onto the case, but first, let's snap in the I/O shield, and now adjust the standoff to fit the holes on the motherboard. Then if we line it up correctly, everything will fall into place, and now we can use these screws to screw everything in. And now we can add some more fans. I picked up this little pack from ID Cooling and I wouldn't spend more than $10 on 2 fans here. But yeah, I definitely think it's worth it and it definitely adds some nice aesthetics and cooling to our PC, even though it's budget already. We can now move to the back of the case and plug in each of these cables that we can into our motherboard. Now we're gonna need some power, so our choice is the MSI A650BN, a 650 watt bronze tier C power supply, which is more than enough for our build. Feel free to use a different option. I was able to get this for $50, so try for a tier C power supply around that price. I might have a link in the description. Anyways, we just screw it on in, and now first just plug in the SATA to our case RGB hub, and then we can route the rest of the cables to where they belong. I'm using these cable extensions from Formula Mod, which I got on AliExpress, and they just make the PC look so much nicer for only like $11 to $12. So I went and plugged those in first. Now I can route the CPU power cable into the cable extension, and then the motherboard power, which fits on the right side of the motherboard. Now that almost everything is plugged in, we have to route the PCIe into the bottom for the GPU. And then before we install our GPU, we just have to unscrew the side bracket, and then these top 2 brackets. And then now here is our GPU, the GTX 1660 Super. Now this one is used and it costs around $80 to $100, somewhere in there. I got mine a while back, so I'm sure the prices have changed, but yeah, either go for this or an RTX 2060 Super. And yeah, we could just kind of snap in the GPU, and then we could take our cable extension and plug it in. And now everything is together. Now that we're done, we obviously have to test, was this PC even worth building? So we're starting off with some Marvel Rivals. Here we're testing 1080p low settings with AMD FSR enabled. And the reason why we're using AMD FSR is because it actually works pretty well with NVIDIA GPUs that don't use DLSS. And if you turn it off completely, then it's a lot worse than having AMD FSR on, and I think it's definitely worth it. Anyways, this played around 80 to 130 FPS, kind of inconsistent, but it was more around 100. But yeah, still very playable. But we're also going to test out 1440p here, and we can see that it definitely drops off. We get more 80 to 100 FPS, but it can go down to even 60 when a lot is going on. Definitely still playable, and if you're planning on playing this game, I would still recommend it. Now we're testing some Valorant. When you have a budget PC, I feel like Valorant's a pretty good test, as this game can always run pretty well. And at 1440p we're testing, it gets around 180 FPS, but varies around 160 to 200, which obviously is plenty, especially since your monitor probably doesn't have a higher refresh rate than that. Then at 1080p, it doesn't really increase in FPS, maybe by like 10, but yeah, still very good. Seems like 200 FPS is a lot more common. Now the ultimate test is Cyberpunk, as this is still a demanding game. At low settings with AMD FSR on, we got 93 FPS, very playable. Then if we adjust it to medium settings, the benchmark ran at 79 FPS. So both very playable, and the game still looks decent enough, even though this is at 1080p. Now the whole reason why I bought the PC is to play Fortnite, obviously. We got 1080p performance, low settings, and here we get 160 to 200 FPS. It kind of varies, there's no real consistent number here. It depends where you are on the map. But yeah, very much playable, higher than what your refresh rate probably is. Then at 1440p, pretty much the same FPS. It just really depends what's going on, obviously, because it actually looks like more around here. Overall, these games ran pretty well, even at 1440p, which you think a 6GB card couldn't do. And yeah, truthfully, esports games will usually run pretty well on a budget system like this. When it gets more single player heavy games, you'll probably be fine for the most part, but sometimes it will definitely start lagging a little bit. However, this PC does still have an upgrade path. We are on the AM4 platform, which has plenty more CPU options, but we can upgrade even with a Ryzen 5 3600. You can easily use a 4060 with this PC, or if you're going AMD, I mean, I'd probably go 7700 XT or lower. Even the newer 9060 XTs would work pretty well with this. So yeah, I think it was a success. But what do you guys think down in the comments? Also make sure to subscribe.